Parents of high schoolers with learning differences, are you concerned that your child isn't setting aside enough time to study for the ACT or the SAT? In this short video, I'm going to show you exactly how to estimate how many hours your kid needs to study to hit their goal score on one of those tests. I'm going to show you the secret formula that I use with my students when I sit down and do this exercise with them and their families. When I sit down and do that, I use this worksheet. So you're going to need a pen and paper to follow along. You're also going to need a calculator. The calculator on your phone will work fine, but you might have to turn it sideways because we're going to be squaring some stuff. And sometimes the phone calculators need to be turned sideways to do that. If you want this worksheet, by the way, so you can follow along, I'm happy to send that to you. Just let me know in the comments below and I'll send it over via Messenger. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jonah Fishel and I run Next Step Prep. I've helped hundreds of students with learning differences reach test scores that they didn't think were possible. And I do that by convincing them first that it is possible and then showing them exactly how to do it. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to get this number, the number of hours that your kid is going to need to study to hit their goal score so that you can help them set up a timeline and a study plan and hit that goal score. So here's how it works. We're just going to need one thing, and that is the number of points that they're going to need to increase by. So you need to know whatever their current test score is, and you need to know what their goal score is. And you just take the difference of those, and that gives us this delta, this triangle here. And we're going to use that number in the formula and just plug it in to get our answer. So that number, if you don't know it already, you're going to have to go figure out what their current score is. You could use a PSAT score, you could use a pre-ACT score, or you could use test scores that they already have. And you're also going to need to know their goal score, which I cover in another video. Once you have that, you just plug it into this formula. I got this formula, by the way, by looking at pretty big data sets. The SAT one comes from the Khan Academy study that they did, where they tested how effective self-study with Khan Academy is. So that's what that number is. It's how many hours it takes to gain a certain number of points using Khan Academy. And then the ACT has a similar program on their website, and I use the data set from that. What that means, though, is that these numbers are closer to averages or estimates, which means that the closer your student is to an average score, the truer these numbers are. So if they're starting between, on the SAT, a 1,000 to 1,100, this number will be more accurate than if they were starting higher or lower, right? And then on the ACT, if they're starting between like a 20 to 22-ish, that's about average, and so the number will be more accurate then. If they're starting lower than that, the actual number of hours they need will be smaller because it's easier to improve if you start from a lower score. And then if they're starting from a higher score, the number of hours that they're going to need is unfortunately going to be higher because the more points you need, the harder they are to gain. So if you've found that number, if you've turned your phone sideways and you've plugged in the number and divided by 0.64 or by 24, and then you've squared your result, that is the number of hours that they're going to need to study to get that point increase. You'll notice it might be more than you thought. That's because the more points you need, the harder they are to get because you need more coverage, you need more study to get there. So the rough rule of thumb that I've seen with my high schoolers with learning differences is the number of points you get to get that many points again takes twice as many hours. So for example, if you gain 2 points after 20 hours, to gain another 2 points on the ACT, you would need 40 more hours. So it's a lot. It adds up, right? So hopefully you have an estimate now, and this will give you a good idea of if it's worth it to go for that goal score, how much time they have before the test, if they can fit that in, what that timeline should look like. I find that having this data helps a lot in setting up a study plan, and that's why I started with all of my clients. So at the very beginning, we have a clear idea of how many hours of work we need to do every week and how far we can get with those hours. So if you want my worksheet that I use so you can follow along, I'm happy to send that to you. I've got a couple of pages of instructions, the example, the blank one. Just let me know in the comments and I'll send it over.